Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's press conference in which we will unveil our plans for the Violins of Hope Nashville project slated for this spring. I'm Alan Valentine, President and CEO of the Symphony, and I want to thank you all for being here. The NSO, the Nashville Symphony, has long held dual commitments to the highest level of artistic quality and community service. And it is in that spirit that with the help of some really, truly extraordinary partners, we're bringing this collection of instruments to Nashville from Israel. Each has a remarkable story to tell about the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable difficulty. Seems very appropriate given what's going on in the world today. This singular collection will serve as a springboard for many of Nashville's cultural organizations to explore the vital role that music, the arts, and creativity play in all of our lives, and we're thrilled to be working, as I said, with so many enthusiastic partners on this historic initiative. And I want to take a moment before I turn the microphone over to Steve Brozvik to thank our community partners in this project. And the list is so long, I won't read all of them at this juncture, but you have them in your materials. Although I do want to specifically thank the downtown Nashville Public Library, where the collection of instruments will be on display and housed during their visit here, as well as the Jewish Federation of Nashville for their tremendous support, and specifically Mark Friedman and his team at the Federation. They've been incredible partners in this project. I also want to thank the following individuals, companies, and organizations who have stepped up with early and generous commitments of financial support to bring this project to our community. Those include the Jewish Federation of Nashville, Delic US, and Uzi Yemen in honor and on behalf of the Akiva School Nashville, the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation, R.J. Young, the Metro Nashville Arts Commission, the Tennessee Arts Commission, Rick and Lynn Scarola, and Frank and Julie Bohm. So won't you join me in showing them our gratitude? The evolution of this project has been rather interesting, and I want to thank Dan Grossman, who's out in the audience, our VP of Marketing, for some years ago bringing this the Violins of Hope to the attention of our management team. But then not long after that happened, we were visited by members of the Jewish Federation about a project that we were working on over some concerns they had about a particular artist. Well, I won't go into the details of that, but the political views of a particular artist. And that led to some really great discussions with the Federation about things we might do together, and we remembered this project, and so here we are today. And I have to say that, you know, great things happen very often out of all kinds of turmoil. So we're thrilled to be here, and in order to lead this project, we knew that this was a project that would require tremendous focus. Well, we have a guy whose middle name is Focus on our team, and his name is Steve Brozvik. And Steve is our Chief Operating Officer, and so I asked Steve to lead this project for us. And I'm going to turn the podium now over to Steve, because he is the expert on all things Violins of Hope. So Steve.
Having one prop. Good afternoon, everyone. Music, resistance, hope, the power of the human spirit. The Holocaust, censorship, coexistence, respect. World War II ended, and the words never again came to special meaning. But as history has shown, as a global people, we haven't learned very much. On a global scale, genocide and civil war continue to happen. Bosnia, Cambodia, Rwanda, Darfur, Syria. These are a few places that easily come to mind without even looking and using Google to find them. In the US, we are deep into the continued discussion and work for civil rights, equity, social justice, and the growth of our culture. Here at home, we're Music City, the IT City. Our already rich cultural palette is the foundation upon which this city has grown. We are amidst a time of incredible growth and change, and as such, our population will continue to expand both in number and in diversity. New cultural influences will expand and reaffirm our music, our art, our culture, our food, our lives. Embracing those influences is a choice to expand the possibilities while reflecting upon our own history and embracing the best parts of ourselves. The way we work together moving forward matters. The things we say, the things we do, the respect we have for each other and ourselves will make a difference in how we develop our city. So with the Jewish Federation of Nashville and Middle Tennessee, in December of 2015, we embarked down the path to bring the Violins of Hope to Nashville. The Violins of Hope are a growing collection of string instruments that are lovingly being restored by Amnon and Avshi Weinstein in Tel Aviv. Most of these instruments were used by prisoners in concentration camps during World War II. These instruments, the musicians, and their music were put to grisly service by the Nazis in those camps. The musicians and the instruments were forced to play music to welcome new prisoners to the camps to give them false hope. They were forced to play for work duties to go out and come back at the end of the day. They were forced to perform concerts for their captors, and they were even forced to perform during executions. In Nashville, we'll have 34 of these instruments. 25 of them will be playable by our musicians. And we hope that the music that is being played, seeing the instruments close up and firsthand, and reading about their stories will drive a community-wide discussion, conversation about the power of music, about respect, diversity, hope, civil rights, censorship, and interfaith dialogue. We quickly knew that we couldn't do this alone, and we started to have conversations with potential partner organizations. Currently, we have 27 partner organizations who are developing programming for this event, and there will be many more to come. Those institutions span cultural institutions, universities, religious organizations, and we'll see where the list leads as we move forward. The projects and ideas are both large and small, from a major series of events to individual lectures and individual concerts. The main body of the project will run from March 22nd through June 2nd of this spring and summer, with concerts, lectures, conversations, and a free physical exhibit of the violins in the gallery spaces generously provided by the downtown Nashville Public Library. To kick off the instruments in the exhibit in Nashville, the Nashville Symphony has commissioned a new work. We've commissioned a new work from American composer Jonathan Leshnoff. It will be his 4th symphony. It's being written specifically for this event, and the concerts that are performed will be recorded and distributed for worldwide release by Naxos. Naxos is the largest classical music label in the world, and appropriately so, they're based right here in Franklin. I did say we were Music City. Leading up to the exhibit, the first major event will be the Southern Festival of Books. The festival is bringing in James Grimes, who is the author of Violins of Hope, which is a book specifically about the instruments and the people who played them and their stories. One of our projects that we're really focused on early in this project is to get people to read. It's an incredible book, and through the process of restoring the violins, the instrument makers have been gathering the stories, collecting the deeply personal moments from family members and survivors. And reading this book, I will tell you, for myself, has changed the way that I look at history and think about my future. The Nashville Ballet has specifically programmed their work in February. They're going to be working with us on this project and performing Light, the Holocaust and Humanity Project. The Blair School of Music and Vanderbilt University have planned a series of concerts and courses and lectures. The Frist, another example, they have created several exhibitions and live performances that go directly to the heart of civil rights, social justice, and history. Those begin in November and run through next spring. The exhibit of the instruments at the library will close Memorial Day, and the Symphony will close the project performing Verdi's Requiem. Not only is this one of Verdi's most enduring works, it is also the piece of music that was performed at the Terezin concentration camp in Germany when the Nazis decided that the best thing they could do was to bring the Red Cross in to show the world that things were all right at the camps. Things were actually quite luxurious. What the Red Cross and the rest of the world didn't know, however, was within several days after that visit by the Red Cross, the musicians who performed that concert had all been exterminated. Never again. Please welcome Mark Friedman, head of the Jewish Federation Nashville.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Friedman. I'm the Executive Director of the Jewish Federation, and we are absolutely pleased to be presenting sponsors along with the Nashville Symphony in this vitally important project that we're bringing to our community. And I thank Alan and Steve for all the hard work and for your friendship, and to the entire Nashville Symphony staff for the incredible job they've done in ramping up to this very, very important program. So the first time I visited Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Jerusalem, was in 1986. It's not the same museum, but the same hills are still there outside of the museum. And when I walked outside, I started to compose a poem in my head. And the first line of the poem went, "There are 6 million songs lost in the hill of Jerusalem." And I really didn't know what it meant until I learned about the Violins of Hope, that Amnon Weinstein, his father before him, and his son are bringing the voices of the Holocaust back to life through these instruments. It's so vitally important that they be heard, and this indeed will be a legacy in our community, that we have brought these violins here so that their stories will be learned and the notes of the instruments will be heard. It's really a unique opportunity. I met Amnon Weinstein for the first time at his workshop in Tel Aviv, along with Steve. We wandered through the streets of Tel Aviv and found it. And walking into that workshop with just not the 34 instruments that will be here, but the many others that are still under repair, that are still being found and brought to Amnon's workshop. That workshop is a holy, sacred place. And we are bringing that holiness and that sacredness here to Nashville. And for that, we should be eternally grateful, very proud of what we're about to do. A very ambitious project. I want to offer my own few words of thank you to some people who are here today. First, I wanted to introduce Tony McClarty of the Akiva School, the Executive Director. The Akiva School is a partner with Delic and the Federation in presenting these programs to the community. Thank you, Tony, so much for your presence. I want to thank my own colleague, my Assistant Executive Director, Naomi Zedek, who is busy filming me at this time, for all her hard work as we have been working very hard to find financial support for the project and help in the development of its programming. Lisa Perlin, the president of the Federation, is not here today, but I want to thank her and the entire board of the Jewish Federation for providing the support that they have for this project. I also want to introduce Felicia Anker, the founding chair of the Tennessee Holocaust Commission, and the reason I mention this is because on October 8th, the Nashville Holocaust Memorial, which is located on the grounds of the Gordon Jewish Community Center, will be commemorating its 10th anniversary. And all of you are invited to participate in that, Sunday, October 8th at 1 p.m. And welcome, Felicia. Thank you for being here today. And I also want to recognize Danielle Kaminsky, the Executive Director of the Tennessee Holocaust Commission, who is very hard at work on planning educational programs that will be offered throughout the time frame of this exhibition. And of course, I want to thank the Nashville Public Library for opening their doors to this tremendous exhibition, and for Nashville becoming the first city in the United States where the Violins of Hope will be on exhibition without charge. So we thank the library for all they have done. The last thing I want to say is about the uniqueness and the smallness and the closeness of the Jewish community. So when I went to Amnon's workshop and then met his wife, Asi, some of you may remember a movie called Defiance. Defiance was the story of the Bielski brothers, the Jewish partisans who fought the Nazis in the woods of Russia. It's an amazing movie, and Asi's story is amazing, but what really was unique to me, and just so incredible, is that Asi Weinstein, her father, and her mother are from the very same village that my grandmother was born in Belarus. So we are indeed a small world that's had a large history, and the Jewish Federation and Jewish Foundation of Nashville and Middle Tennessee is very, very proud to be a part of this extraordinary experience, and we look forward to seeing all of you throughout the exhibition, all of the performances and educational opportunities. And with that, I would like to invite Liz Coleman from the Nashville Public Library to come and offer comments. Liz?
Thanks so much, Mark. I'm Liz Coleman with the Nashville Public Library, and just very briefly, my comments are brief, but our excitement is big. The Nashville Public Library is very excited to be hosting the Violins of Hope exhibit at the main library. With an average of over 56,000 visitors each month, as well as the civil rights collection and related social justice programming, this is a great opportunity for us to help bring this important topic to Nashville and beyond. And now, it's my pleasure to introduce Paul Vasterling with the Nashville Ballet.
Thanks, everybody. It's so great to see you all. I am so proud to be part of an arts community that not only values collaboration with one another, but values using our art forms as an inspiration and catalyst for action. In February of 2018, Nashville Ballet will present Light, the Holocaust and Humanity Project. Light is a full-length contemporary ballet and Holocaust education partnership that promotes tolerance and the protection of human rights against bigotry and hate through art, education, and public dialogue. Light was choreographed by Ballet Austin, and choreographed and conceived by Ballet Austin artistic director Stephen Mills. And since its premiere in 2005, Light has traveled to cities all over the world, making its debut in Nashville next winter. You know, I've wanted to bring this ballet to our community since I saw the premiere in 2005. And when Steve came to me to talk to me about the Violins of Hope, ding, I was like, aha, I now have a context to bring this ballet here. So the timing is really perfect for this, and I'm so happy and thankful to the Nashville Symphony for thinking of this and including us in it. The ballet unfolds as Naomi Warren, a real-life Holocaust survivor, reflects on her life. Stephen, the choreographer, worked extensively with Naomi to create the ballet. Naomi believed it's everyone's responsibility to use whatever platform they possess to speak out when confronted with acts of bigotry and hate. She suggested to Stephen that as an artist with access, this was his duty. Nashville Ballet's biggest goal in presenting Light is to use our art as an inspiration and catalyst for action. By partnering with community groups, as well as the Violins of Hope project, we hope to increase awareness of human rights issues in our communities so we can all become agents of change and consider our own personal responsibility when confronted with injustice in the world today. As Stephen says, art can't change the world, only people can do that. But what's unique about art is its ability to spark meaningful conversation, teach important lessons, and leave lasting impressions that have the power to lead change. That's exactly what I see possible in the Violins of Hope community-wide initiative and Nashville Symphony's work there, and we're so proud to be part of this project. And now I would like to introduce Pamela Schneller from Vanderbilt University.
Thank you. We little people have challenges. We're delighted to be here today. The Blair School, Music at Vanderbilt, and all other parts of Vanderbilt, including the Vanderbilt Library and the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at Vanderbilt, are proud and honored and feel very privileged to participate in this Violins of Hope project. Dean Mark Wade wanted very much to be here today but was unable to do so, and he's asked me to share a statement on behalf of the Blair School. It's always timely and imperative for every civilized society to renounce bigotry, hatred, and discrimination. There is no better means of embracing the language of hope than through the universal language of music. Music brings hope, music brings consolation, it exhorts us, and it unites us. It offers us pathways to new beginnings and new friendships and the healing of wounds. When one asks musicians, what shall we do in the face of tragedy? What shall we do in the face of this horror? As Leonard Bernstein once said, well, let us make music. And so we shall. Accordingly, the Blair School of Music will present a series of 6 different concerts, everything from larger scale events, corroborating with Vox Grata Women's Choir, led by Jeanette McCallum, there she is, and the Blair Children's Chorus, and bringing the words of Anne Frank to life, to intimate small-scale chamber recitals, such as by Sylvia Samus and her son Michael, and others who will be bringing the words of Sylvia's mother, who was a Holocaust survivor, the words and music that was composed in a most intimate setting and brought back, saved from the camps. All of these concerts, chamber music events, lectures, a film demonstration, will all be presented in the spirit of privilege to be allowed to partner with so many wonderful institutions in finding new ways to forge new bridges of hope and friendship and peace in our community. So we thank you very much. We feel very privileged to partner with all of these others in sharing this story. Thank you. And last but not least, it is my privilege to introduce Katie Delmez from the Frisch Center.
I'm glad another short person preceded me. Thank you very much for having us today. I want to join these esteemed colleagues in expressing appreciation for the Symphony's initiative to bring Nashville's creative community together in celebration of the Violins of Hope. The Frisch Center is very pleased to be a partnering institution in this endeavor and will be featuring 3 exhibitions this spring that address issues surrounding social justice and resistance to oppression. The first one opens in February and is an examination of life inside of Angola Prison, Louisiana State Penitentiary, and one of our country's largest prison farms. Black and white photographs taken by a husband and wife team who were born and raised in the lower 9th Ward of New Orleans, where they continue to live and work, depict prisoners, largely African American men, laboring in the fields under the watch of white men with guns on horseback. The poignant images look like they were taken in 1850, and it is startling, almost horrifying, when you realize that they were actually taken as recently as 2005. The photos also examine the impact that mass incarceration has on the extended family, as well as the lack of equity in general in the judicial system. The exhibition will conclude with a documentary video showing the release of 2 inmates who were exonerated for their crimes through DNA, of course, after they had spent decades living in Angola. The second exhibition opens in late March and is a look at the struggle for freedom and equality right here in Nashville during the civil rights era of the late 1950s and 60s. 50 photographs from the archives of the Banner and the Tennessean will trace major events in our city's history, from the desegregation of public schools in 1957 to the student-led sit-ins at downtown lunch counters that led to Nashville being the first city in the Southeast to have integrated places of business. And the exhibition will end with the unrest, that broke out in our city after Martin Luther King Jr. was killed in Memphis. In fact, this project is presented in recognition of the 50th anniversary of that tragedy. And while much has changed, as we all know, since that time, some of the images remind us that there's still so much to be done to advance not only racial, but equity of all forms here in Nashville and around the country. And finally, we will be presenting the work of Chicago-based visual artist Nick Cave this spring in our upper level galleries. Cave's practice developed largely in response to Rodney King's beating by Los Angeles police more than 25 years ago. His trademark human-shaped sculptures were originally conceived as a type of armor that protected its wearer from profiling by concealing race, gender, and class. However, at the heart of Cave's work is his wish to create spaces where we can cultivate dreams and hope for a better future, and his belief that art can be an agent of connectivity and compassion. In this spirit, he also produces major cross-discipline performances using members of local creative communities. As the culmination of our project, we are so thrilled to be presenting a free public performance that will feature Nashville dancers, musicians of many genres, spoken word artists, poets, and many others right here at the Symphony on Friday, April 6th. And like Violins of Hope, this performance will bring a broad swath of our city together in celebration of our shared human experiences. And at a time when acts of fear and hate continue to threaten dreams of equality, we can once again perhaps look to the arts for healing. So with that, my understanding is that Mr. Valentine will answer questions.
As you can see, we have robust plans already, and more are continually being developed. So you saw the website on the screen, violinsofhopenashville.org, and if you'll go there, you can get updates as they're developed. I'd like for Giancarlo Guerrero, Maestro Guerrero, would you please join me up here? And what I will do, rather than answer questions, I will facilitate questions. How's that? And so we can do a little bit of Q&A here, and then you might want to add a few comments, Giancarlo. But in the meantime, let me just start by opening up the room for questions.
I haven't read the book, so I'm sure the answers are in this, but just for people who are watching, can you talk to us a little bit about, is it difficult to document these instruments, or is this passed down from family? What is, how do you authenticate it?
I'll let Steve comment on that, but I will tell you that it's probably better answered by Amnon Weinstein himself. But Steve, you want to
Give it a shot.
Come on.
Sure. Great question, and that really is the impetus of this book, actually. I'll answer the question through the story of, I think, what is the first violin that came to Amnon Weinstein. There was a gentleman who had been a survivor of a camp who had played one of these violins in one of the camp orchestras. Left the camp, moved on from World War II, put the violin in his attic, never touched it, never told his family the story. He was late in life, was dying, and talked to his granddaughter and said, the one thing that I want is to be able to play my violin one more time. So they dug the violin out of the attic, they took it to Amnon Weinstein and asked him if he could repair it. His first response in looking at the violin was, well, it's in such bad condition, it would be really much easier for you just to purchase a new violin and use that. She dutifully went back and said, this is what I found out. And he said, no, you don't understand. This is why this instrument is important. And for the first time, that story was told to his family. It was the first time that he could deal with it after so many years. So as these instruments have been coming to him and word of mouth has spread that he's restoring them, they're meeting the family members and learning of the stories of these family members who just couldn't even speak about it. And certainly haven't been playing the instruments or playing music. It was that impactful for them.
Can I ask one follow-up on that? Are some of these instruments, you know, if they were in a camp, are some of them makeshift? I mean, or were many of them brought in, like they were they were made by masters before the war started or were brought in that condition. I mean, how did these musicians, if they broke a string or broke a peg or did something, can you see that on what's on these instruments?
You won't see that now. There are some before and after examples that we will have in the exhibit. The instruments, as they're coming to the Weinsteins, are in horrible condition. First, because they've been sitting in attics for so long, in most cases. But they were outside playing in the rain. They were just put to use. I believe most, if not all, of the instruments were brought to the camps by the people who owned them. But as the people went away, the instruments became available. And through whatever trials and tribulations of being instituted into a camp, the prison wardens, et cetera, discovered that some people were musicians, and they started pulling them out of the line from execution and said, your job now is to play this instrument and play in the orchestra.
I would add one thing. I was not fortunate enough to be able to go to Israel and meet the Weinsteins, but I went down to Sarasota because they had a very brief visit by the Violins of Hope and met the Weinsteins. And during that brief meeting, they opened the case that contained the instrument that had been in Auschwitz, and I couldn't speak. I mean, you could feel the energy coming off of this instrument. And if anybody walks through that exhibit, they will walk out changed. It was powerful. And do you want to add a comment,
I just
Mark?
want to add a comment. I would, first of all, encourage everybody to read Violins of Hope, this book, because the first-person accounts that Grimes was ever able to obtain, plus the testimony of family members, is truly extraordinary and very, very compelling, and I think you'll get a very good understanding of how these stories have been transmitted. And I wanted to add, just want to put one other event from the calendar on your radar. That is on Thursday, April 12th. The Jewish community each year has an annual Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day commemoration, and that event will be held here at the Skimmerhorn at 5 p.m. prior to the regularly scheduled concert that night, at which we will have an opportunity to both commemorate the Holocaust, the families and the survivors who still live in our community. And it is our hope that some of them will be able to share their own personal stories on that evening to give you a stronger flavor of what people experienced during this extraordinary time. It's really amazing and just quite unusual that these instruments, for as long as possible, was actually a lifeline for some of these survivors. And some of them ended very tragically, but some were able to survive the Holocaust and then transmit their stories after their liberation and as these instruments found their way to Israel. Thank you.
And by the way, the book is generally available, but it is also available right here in the Skimmerhorn's gift shop. So we do have copies here if anybody wants to pick one up here. If there are more questions?
I'd like to know more about the symphony concerts and the musicians, the violinists who will be playing. How are they picking the violins they'll play, and what is that process going to be?
That's a good segue to turn this over to Giancarlo for a few comments.
Good afternoon, everyone. And one of the most powerful moments in that program is going to be that these instruments are going to have a voice. And in many ways, our musicians are going to become a conduit to that message. And I know it's going to be quite powerful for those of us to be around them and to be played in an actual concert and an actual recording for posterity. I know it will be an interesting process to realize who plays what, but that's the whole point. I know that in the spirit of brotherhood, all the musicians are going to, amongst themselves, decide how these should be shared. That program, by the way, which is a nice segue, last week we had the honor of hosting John Williams. And in that program, we're going to be playing 3 pieces from his Academy Award-winning score of Schindler's List. and our own concertmaster Juni Wasaki will be the soloist. And I told John last week about this project, and he was beyond moved that he would have never imagined that music that he wrote for that unforgettable film would be played with instruments that have such a history. I'm already encouraging June to start thinking about not doing it maybe with one violin. There's 3 pieces. Maybe he should consider doing it with 3 different instruments, because each of them is going to have their own soul. In that program also, we are premiering this new work by Jonathan Leshnov, his 4th Symphony. I started to think about how we would close that program. How can you follow that? How can you finish a program that has such a powerful message, and not all of it, in a very positive light? So why not bring it to American music, which is what we love to champion here, not only at the Nashville Symphony, but in American Music City. So we're closing with Barber's Adagio for Strings, to give us a chance to reflect on it all. And I think at the end, it's going to be one of the most powerful weekends of music making. I think personally I will have, and I know I speak for my colleagues in the orchestra, I couldn't be prouder that this is taking place in my hometown. This makes me so proud to be a citizen of this wonderful city, because when we all come together in this way for a particular cause, which is to put light on a portion of history that should not be forgotten, and that hopefully we can all learn from it. So I will be the first one when these instruments arrive there, and watching how all of this takes place in, I guess, dividing up who's going to play what. But I can promise you, the musicians are very much looking forward to sharing the stage with this portion, with these incredible instruments, which have obviously a history to tell.
Sylvia?
I would just like to add a little bit to your comments about playing those instruments, because in 2008, I had the privilege of playing on one of the Violins of Hope that was brought from Israel, giving a concert in Cincinnati. And the first time that I played it, you could actually feel the instrument had a soul of its own, and always, it's as if it had played that music before. And it took my breath away. It was an amazing experience.
I understand. When I saw that violin, viewed that violin from Auschwitz, Amnon leaned over to me and he said, "They speak without even being played." And he was right. It's really incredible.
Exactly.
One more.
What are the dates that they're going to be here?
The dates that they will be here are March, get the exact dates.
Well, they arrive probably the 17th or 18th of March. On the 19th, at the beginning of that week, we will have a selection day with the violin restorers here to tell the stories to our musicians as we work through that process. They'll be in use by the orchestra for that full week, and they'll go on exhibit at the downtown library on March 26th. And then they will be in exhibit through Memorial Day.
Well, if there are no other questions, some of us will be around after the press conference, so if any of you have questions you want to speak with anybody one-on-one, you can do that. And again, thank you all for being here. We're really looking forward to this. I think it's going to make our March, April, and May of next spring a really incredible experience for our entire community, and one that I hope brings us all together in a way that nothing else could, not even the flood. So thank you all for being here. Thank you.